Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely mind-blowing, a massive paradigm shift regarding life, death, and the very nature of human consciousness. If you've ever found yourself staring at the ceiling wondering what actually happens when our physical bodies finally give out, well, you're definitely not alone. We're going to explore some incredibly fascinating, cutting-edge scientific hypotheses, specifically the link between quantum mechanics and the human soul. This might just completely change how you view your own existence.
So let's kick things off with a pretty massive question. Does your consciousness continue forever, even after your physical body perishes? Now, for the longest time, talking about the soul was strictly the stuff of occult myths, spiritualism, or, sci-fi movies. But we're stepping way past those myths today. We're actually going to look at what modern quantum physics and some truly incredible medical anomalies have to say about our ultimate fate.
Okay, moving into our first major area. Science's challenge and the mystery of the soul.
You see, for well over a century, some of the most brilliant minds on Earth have genuinely tried to weigh, measure, and decode the core of human existence. Just look at this quote. This is from the father of quantum theory himself, Nobel laureate Max Planck. After a lifetime of studying physical matter, he came to this astonishing conclusion. The true essence of our world actually lies in consciousness. And later on, the brilliant Stephen Hawking echoed a similar sentiment, noting that the indestructible nature of consciousness is basically a fundamental rule of the universe. I mean, when the absolute giants of physics start saying the material world isn't the whole story, we should probably sit up and pay attention.
But the scientific hunt for the soul actually kicked off way back in 1907. An American physician named Dr. Duncan McDougall went as far as designing these meticulously calibrated beds to weigh terminal patients down to a fraction of a gram. And he found something that sparked a 100-year scientific frenzy. At the exact moment of human death, he measured a sudden 21-gram weight loss. To put that in perspective, that's roughly the weight of a heaped teaspoon of sugar. Interestingly enough, when he ran the exact same test on dogs, zero weight loss, no change. Now yes, this 21-gram theory became highly controversial and was heavily debated, but it planted a massive seed. It got scientists wondering, is there actually something tangible that leaves us?
That brings us to a huge paradigm shift. Let's look at the brain as a consciousness receiver.
So, while modern science did eventually write off that 21-gram weight loss as a measurement error, they didn't just abandon the search. Not at all. Instead, they shifted gears entirely, moving away from weight and focusing heavily on information. And this completely redefined how we view the human brain. The old-school view is that your brain generates consciousness, kind of like a car engine creating power. You shut off the engine, the power's gone, right? But the revolutionary new view? It suggests your brain doesn't create consciousness at all. It just receives it. Think of it exactly like a smartphone pulling down data from the cloud. If you drop your phone and smash it to pieces, your photos, your messages, your data, they aren't gone. They're perfectly safe out there on the network. In the exact same way, if your physical brain breaks down, your consciousness, your personal data, remains completely intact out there in the universe.
So let's explore what happens when that receiver shuts off, looking at expanded consciousness and near-death experiences.
Right, so what actually happens to our conscious data when the physical receiver pulls the plug? Well, Dr. Sam Parnia over at NYU has spent nearly 20 years studying the near-death experiences, or NDEs, of cardiac arrest patients to figure exactly that out. And across thousands of testimonies, these NDEs consistently feature four mind-blowing patterns. First, patients report floating out of their bodies with such hyper-precise awareness that they can describe exactly where a nurse was standing or even objects hidden way up on high shelves in the operating room. They also report these incredibly warm encounters with deceased relatives, a really strong sense of confusion or reluctance when they're suddenly pulled back into their bodies, and, maybe most surprisingly, a profound, deep sense of absolute freedom and relief. So in these moments, death isn't characterized by fear at all. It's described as this immense, almost beautiful liberation.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how these experiences suggest our consciousness actually operates in stages. Look at this breakdown. Step 1, at the bottom, is dream consciousness. When you're dreaming, you usually have no idea it's a dream until you wake up, right? Step 2 is our daily reality, where we are right now, awake, logical, making sense of things. But step 3, that NDE consciousness, patients describe it as feeling vastly more real than our everyday life. They say complex, universe-level questions suddenly make perfect sense. This implies that our consciousness actually becomes clearest and most expansive right at the moment of death. It kind of suggests that our daily 3D reality is really just a deeper kind of dream, one that we eventually just wake up from.
Moving right along, let's dive into the quantum brain and universal memory.
To explain how this expanding consciousness is even biologically possible, we have to look at the work of the 2020 Nobel laureate Sir Roger Penrose. He points to these incredibly fascinating things called microtubules. Deep inside our brain's neurons are these tiny 25-nanometer tube-like structures. To put that into perspective, they are a tiny fraction of the width of a single human hair. Penrose proposes that inside these microscopic tubes, electrons exist in a state of quantum entanglement. As these structures constantly expand and contract, they act almost like keys on a piano. When electrons entangle here, specific thoughts, memories, and emotions are basically played into existence. It's literally the quantum mechanics of the soul happening right inside your head.
And Penrose takes this a step further. He suggests that when we die, all this quantum information doesn't just vanish into nothing. Think about a dying campfire. The heat doesn't disappear, it just disperses into the atmosphere. Similarly, the quantum data making up your memories and personality returns to the broader universe. And what's absolutely wild about this is that ancient civilizations around the globe already intuitively understood this. Whether you look at the Akashic records, the ancient Egyptian Book of Life, or the Mayan Sky Library, they all talked about this vast cosmic database holding every human experience. Today, modern science just has a cooler name for it: the quantum information conservation field. It really feels like modern science is finally just catching up to ancient wisdom, doesn't it?
Next up, let's look at higher dimensions and cosmic projections.
So if all this incredibly complex information is released back into the universe, where exactly is the cosmic storage drive? Well, researchers observing the quantum field started noticing some really strange anomalies. Particles were behaving in ways that simply could not be mapped within our standard universe. This strongly suggests that consciousness extends way, way beyond our standard 3D space of height, width, and depth. It acts almost like a portal, tethering us to somewhere else entirely.
And that brings us to the magic number 11. Through some incredibly rigorous mathematical calculations and the framework of string theory, modern physics actually proposes that our universe consists of up to 11 dimensions. Most of these dimensions are completely invisible to us. They exist right here, right on top of us, intricately folded into the very fabric of space.
So here's the crucial point. How do we, as humans, actually fit into this wild, multidimensional framework? Think of a shadow cast on the sidewalk. A 3D object, like your body, creates a flat 2D shadow. The shadow moves, sure, but it's not the real object. Researchers theorize that our 3D physical bodies are merely shadows. They are projections cast by a higher 4D consciousness, which is in turn cast by a 5D consciousness, cascading all the way up the chain. Our ultimate true self is an 11-dimensional entity. Under this model, humans are essentially beings projected from higher dimensions. And death isn't an end at all. It's simply our consciousness detaching from this little 3D shadow and returning home up the dimensional ladder to our true, higher dimensional state.
Which naturally leads us to our final section. Why are souls here in the first place?
Because really, if we are these eternal 11-dimensional beings whose information is perfectly conserved forever, what on earth is the purpose of temporarily living in this limited, sometimes frustrating 3D physical form? Well, quantum physicist Fred Allen Wolf offers a truly profound perspective on this. He suggests that we are basically here on an expedition. He says that joyful experiences and painful experiences alike are all absolutely essential for the evolution of the soul. We are here gathering quantum data. Every single time you face a tough hardship, overcome a brutal challenge, or share a moment of deep love with someone, that experience gets permanently etched into your quantum information. You endure the heavy limitations of this 3D world specifically to build deeper empathy, resilience, and strength, permanently enriching the entire universe's grand library of experiences.
Since we're all inevitably returning to our cosmic home anyway, perhaps knowing all this allows us to profoundly shift our perspective. You are not just a fragile physical body. You are an eternal, multidimensional explorer on a vital mission to gather experiences. So how will you view your life's hardships, your heartbreaks, and your triumphs, knowing they are perfectly preserved cosmic treasures? Just let that soak in for a moment. Hopefully, it empowers you to face every single 3D experience from here on out with a newfound sense of immense purpose and peace. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope it gave you as much to think about as it did for me.